morning. Happy Friday the 13th. Woo! I feel like I should be like wearing something spooky or something. Good thing we are finishing up our spooky narrative rough drafts on Friday the 13th, okay? First, we're going to start off with daily editing. Then I want to talk about spooky narrative rough drafts and what I expect. And then I know that yesterday we talked about conclusions or resolutions, as we call them, in our plot diagrams. I have some suggestions on how you can conclude your stories, so we will do a quick presentation on that. First up is daily editing. All right, today we have Eliza find several of her old diaries. I see two mistakes. Take a quick look at that while I get set up. Today feels like an orange day. It's Friday the 13th. All right, I have a capital at the beginning, a period at the end. It's not a question, so I know that's good. So it must be something else. First, I think, oh, wow, that sounds a little weird, right? Because didn't she already find it? So if I want to make that past tense, there's a hint for your verb tense too. I want to make this found. Bear with me. Writing with your mouse is not always the easiest. Found, F-O-U-N-D. Eliza found several of her old diaries. Doesn't that make way more sense? I'm making that verb tense agree with the sentence. Next, I have diaries. Let's look at this ending. Y-S. That looks a little weird to me. What about you guys? Instead of Y-S, what do we like to put? It's a different ending. Think about it. Think about puppy. P-U-P-P-Y. How do I spell puppies? It's not P-U-P-P-Y-S, okay? I'm going to add I-E-S. When we have that Y, if we want to get plural, most of the time we're going to put I-E-S, okay? Eliza found several of her old diaries, all right? I'm going to type that in. Don't forget the period right here, guys, and don't forget that capital letter. Some of you are missing silly points on that. The next thing we have to talk about is a verb tense. Is it past, present, or future? If she already found it, we know that it's past. It has already happened, okay? Make sure you take your time so you're not missing silly points on that, okay, guys? The answers are right here, right in front of you. All right, so take your time. All right, today is the day. Our spooky narrative rough drafts are due today. It does not need to be perfect, guys. We are going to work on these all week next week, really polishing them off and making them look perfect, okay? And then you'll turn them, well, you won't turn them in, you'll just tell me that you're done. And I will grade these over Thanksgiving break. So I want you to take your time for this, please, 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 okay? So don't forget that you should be writing a spooky narrative. Your story should be spooky, suspenseful, downright horrifying. It's all up to you. Begin drafting your story, but keep in mind, it should be 4 to 5 paragraphs. I know a couple of you have asked, well, Mrs. Nugent, I have like 6. That is okay. 6 or 7 is fine. Please don't turn in like 20-some paragraphs. If this is a story that you want to continue and write more chapters, I will be happy to read that throughout the year. But for this assignment, I want 4 to 5 paragraphs, okay? You have to begin your writing with a hook. Make sure your story is interesting, and please don't change the font to anything too crazy, okay? All right, now we're going to jump into a lesson about clever conclusions. Give me 1 second to get set up. All right, one of the hardest parts of a story whenever I'm writing one is always figuring out how I want it to end. Sometimes we write these amazing stories, and then our end we're like, it's okay, okay? And a lot of the times, 5th graders, I love you guys, but you guys always end with the end now or to be continued, which can be good sometimes if it's done right. But I want to give you some other examples of ways that you can branch out and do other different endings, okay? So remember, your conclusion should hold the reader's attention. Your goal is to hook me from the very first word with our writing hooks, right? At that beginning of our story and to the last. So your conclusion should really round out your story, okay? Here are some specific types of conclusions or endings that you can consider to help finish your masterpiece. If you want to combine some of these, or if you have something else in mind, as long as it really ends your story on a polished note, awesome, okay? So the first thing you could do is do an emotional ending. Okay, this is where you leave your reader feeling like all those like good feelings or sad feelings, just emotional, okay? I personally like a good ending, a nice happy ending. They really, as a writer, you want to tug at the heartstrings of your reader. You want to make them feel something. So this might be like a sentimental ending. So for example, in the book, Thank You, Mr. Falker by Patricia Polacco. I love this book, by the way. And I know it's a picture book, but I just want you to, I'm going to read this ending to you. And I want you to think about how it makes you feel some kind of emotion. That night, Trisha ran home without stopping to catch her breath. She bounded up the front steps, threw open her front door, and ran through the dining room to the kitchen. She climbed up on the cupboard and grabbed a jar of honey. Then she went into the living room and found the book on a shelf, the very book that her grandpa had shown her that so many years ago. She spooned honey on the cover and tasted the sweetness and said to herself, "The honey is sweet, and so is knowledge, but knowledge is like the bee who made the honey. It has to be chased through the pages of a book." Then she held the book, honey and all, close to her chest. She could feel tears roll down her cheeks, but they weren't tears of sadness. She was happy, so very happy. Okay, so that book really makes us feel something. If you've ever read it, I do have a few copies at school, so just let me know, and I can let you borrow it, or I'm sure there's a YouTube video. It is an amazing book, okay? But this ending really rounds up the story because it makes you feel something, gives you those emotions, all right? You can also end with a question ending, okay? You can end your story with a question to keep your readers thinking, all right? This is going to just help make your story more memorable because it leaves your reader like, oh, I don't know. Let me think about that, okay? So I have this book, Tommy Loses His Eyes, okay, by Paul Goebel. Okay, so the ending of this book. So this is just the ending. And again, I'm sure you can find these on YouTube or at your local library. If you're like super interested. These are mostly picture books though, guys. So, but if you're interested in the whole story. Iktomi went on his way, limping on tender hurting feet and muttering to himself, "I'll find Squirrel and ask him to give me back my eyes." Do you think Ikto will ever see again? And can anyone guess what he will be up to after that? Okay, so you could end with literally a question that rounds your story out just like that. Okay, guys? Next, we have something called a circular ending. This is when a story circles back to the beginning, okay? So they're going to kind of end with the same idea or the same setting or even maybe the same words, okay, from the beginning of the story. So The Wizard of Oz, all right? It starts at home. So she's at home. There's her dog. That's kind of how it starts, right? And then it also ends with her waking up at home, right? Okay, with her dog, all right? So do we see how that kind of circles back? It's the same setting, okay? No, we don't need to watch that again, do we? Ooh, or that. There we go. That book that we talked about with hooks last week, Surprising Sharks, okay? It also kind of ends with the same thought. So at the beginning, we had that amazing hook that Mrs. Nugent loved. You're swimming in the warm blue sea. What's the one word that turns your dream into a nightmare? What's the one word that makes you think of a giant man-eating killer? Shark, right? Well, then the book ends with, if you were a shark swimming in the lovely blue sea, the last word you'd want to hear would be human. See how it's a similar idea? It kind of comes full circle. At the beginning, it was a human thinking shark. At the end, it's a shark thinking human. Okay, so it's full circle. All right, next would be like getting the lesson learned or the moral. We're going to talk about theme very soon after Thanksgiving break. So we'll be getting the theme, okay, which is the moral of the story. So the main character in the story, they grow, they learn, okay, and they learn something important. And at the end, that's kind of stated, all right? So for example, we have Seven Blind Mice, this book by Ed Young, okay? The mouse moral, knowing in part may make a fine tale, but wisdom comes from seeing the whole. Okay, so think about like Tortoise and the Hare or any fables that you've heard from Aesop. Okay, they always end where like we all know that the Tortoise and the Hare ends with, don't forget, slow and steady wins the race. Okay, so you can state the moral of the story if you've got a really good one. Okay, if your character really learned something. All right. Or in Little Red Riding Hood, we have, from that day on, Little Red Riding Hood never stopped to pick flowers as she hurried through the woods. She wouldn't stop to talk to anyone and always kept to the main path out in the bright open. So think about it. Has your character made mistakes that they've learned from? You could totally sum those up in that last little bit and kind of say, all right, and Alex learned to never mess with Mr. Elting and his cookies, right? Okay, so think about what your character has learned and how they have grown, all right? Advice ending is another one, kind of similar to that last one, where either the reader or the main character in the book gets really good advice from somebody, okay? It could just be the narrator, or if it's the character getting advice, then it would be from another character, maybe a wiser character, all right? And it kind of sums up how the character has changed and what they've learned. So here we have the book called Sophia Peterman Tells the Truth, okay? So it ends with, and if that happens, no matter what, do not tell your parents. Because if you do, they'll bring home another one, and then you'll be outnumbered. So you see how the narrator actually starts talking directly to the reader. You do. They'll bring home, okay? You'll be outnumbered. You can do that. You can give advice, or it could be like, and Mr. Elting told Alex, it's not nice to steal from teachers, okay? So you can have a character or your narrative kind of sum up some good advice for the reader. Again, that's kind of similar to moral, okay? Next, I think this is probably the most popular, a cliffhanger ending. This will be like your to be continued, but you can do it better than just saying to be continued, okay? So you're going to want the reader, think about like at the end of our chapters of A Long Walk to Water, how we always end on those cliffhangers, and you guys are like, no, keep reading, please. That's what this is. I want to feel that. This is your chance to pay me back for all those times that I stopped reading those chapters and totally teased you, okay? You guys can leave me on a cliffhanger in your spooky story to where I'm like, no, please, tell me what happens next. Write another chapter, okay? So this is your chance. That's what a cliffhanger is. You're trying to excite your readers. So, for example, in this book, The Secret Knowledge of Grown-Ups, okay? The end of it states, hundred of grown-up rules remain. The truth must be told about them all, but they're on my trail. I hear them coming. So for now what? Tell me more. Why are they after you? What rules? Tell me more, right? That is an excellent cliffhanger. You could also have a surprise ending. Hold on, I want to go back to that actually really quick. These cliffhangers. See how this author didn't put to be continued? They literally just left us with an incomplete sentence right there at the end, like, excuse me, what happened? All right. Do that. You don't have to put to be continued. You can grow past that. Okay. Next, we have surprise endings. This would, the story takes you where you didn't expect it to go. It's like a twist. Okay. Where you're like, what? Are you kidding me? Okay. Similar to Cliffhanger, but a little bit more surprising. So Walter the Farting Dog, one of the best picture books of all time. Fun fact, if you've never read it, it's hilarious. I definitely have some copies of that at school. We have, when Father and Mother came down in the morning, they found the open window, and they saw the bag of the valuables in it, and Walter was sitting beside it. He still had the rag tied around his snout. You'd have to say he looked heroic. You saved the silverware, cried Mother. You saved the VCR, cried Father. Good dog, Walter. You're our dog, even if you do fart all the time, okay? So you didn't expect them to, appreciate this dog because it's kind of stinky, but it kind of surprised us and shocked us. Plus, he stopped the robbers. Shocking, okay? There is another video that you can go in and watch in my notes, the I Want My Hat Back, okay? It has a nice little surprise ending, too. All right? Ooh. So what I want you to do is go ahead now and pick a clever conclusion. Think of how you want to end your story, okay? Those are just some ideas. Again, you can combine some of those. If you have a creative way that you already want to end your story, awesome. Just make sure it does your story justice. You don't want to just end abruptly and leave your reader hanging. I'm your reader. That'll make me sad, okay? Really take some time and think about the best way to end your story, okay? Don't forget, guys, you have to do your spelling test today. It's on Buzz. And you need to, your rough draft should be done. I won't check those probably till Monday morning or Sunday morning. So if you need this weekend to work on that, please go ahead and take that, okay? If you have any questions, please shoot me an email. I'll be available today to respond to those. So just let me know, okay? Bye, guys.